Well, Shabbat Shalom and Mazel Tov, Emery. Beautiful, beautiful job. Well done. A few weeks back, as I was robotically filling out school forms and camp forms and more school forms and more camp forms for my children, something stopped me in my tracks. I had been on autopilot, just typing and signing and uploading, but one particular form jolted me out of my stupor. It was an anti-bullying pledge, meant for the kids to sign, of course, and sent from our camp, URJ Crane Lake Camp. And while we'd received this pledge before, for some reason it landed differently this year. Perhaps it's because there have been so many tragic bullying stories that have permeated the news as of late. Or perhaps it's because so many current politicians leverage their power through aggressive bullying tactics and abusive rhetoric. Whatever the case may be, this anti-bullying pledge resonated for me in ways it hadn't before. And so when I read the Torah portion this week, Bahar Behukotai, which discusses, among many other things, land use, real estate transactions, and business ethics, I was taken aback when I stumbled upon the phrase, Al tonu ish et achiv, you shall not wrong one another. Just a few verses later, a slight variation on that phrase appears, and we read again, do not wrong one another. This relational commandment, grounded in the idea that we must treat one another with dignity and kindness, called out to me. But there's more. Our commentators dig into this phrase, and some ultimately read it as a prohibition against verbal abuse. So what the phrase actually means is, do not wrong one another with your words or your speech. As the renowned 12th century scholar Maimonides explains, you shall not wrong one another refers to wronging with words. Overreach with words is worse than overreach with money, because one can return money, but one cannot return words. One situation only involves a person's money, but the other involves his whole self. Maimonides understood that the wrongs we inflict with words are perhaps the most painful wrongs of all. He understood that verbal injury, like insults and ridicule, mockery and provocation, these abuses inflicted wounds that might never heal. Thus, when we read, do not wrong one another, we must also read, do not taunt, do not tease, do not mock or deride, and do not bully. According to the Anti-Bullying Alliance, bullying is defined as the repetitive, intentional hurting of one person or group by another person or group where the relationship involves an imbalance in power. It can happen face-to-face or online. It's estimated that 1 in 5 of our teens and preteens have experienced bullying of some kind. 1 in 5. Bullying behavior can manifest in a number of ways. It might be physical, like hitting or kicking or shoving. It might be verbal, like teasing or taunting, name-calling or body shaming, rumor-mongering, or it even may come in the form of threats. Bullying might be emotional, like intentionally excluding someone or isolating them. It might be cyberbullying, which involves using social media or one of our many texting platforms to threaten, insult, or harass a person. And while bullying often happens at school, it also happens in places adjacent to school, like the school bus or the playground. Of course, a significant portion of bullying now happens online, in spaces that are very often far removed from parents and supervisors of any kind. There are so many places our children frequent where bullying is a serious issue. It's something they must learn to guard against, to stand up to, but also to courageously refrain from as well. And to that point, I want to share a story with you about a young woman named Eve Shalin. For many years, Eve was the butt of everyone's jokes and an easy target for bullies. She says, "My 8th grade class consisted of 28 students, most of whom knew each other from the age of 5 or 6. Although we grew up together, we still had class outcasts. From 2nd grade on, a small elite group spent a large portion of their time harassing 2 or 3 of the others. I was one of those 2 or 3. Though I don't know why." She continues, "The harassment was subtle. It came in the form of muffled giggles when I talked and rolled eyes when I turned around. If I was out in the playground and approached a group of people, they often fell silent. Sometimes someone would not see me coming and I would catch the tail end of a joke at my expense." But even though Eve understood what it felt like to be diminished so publicly in the eyes of others, she didn't take the lesson to heart. Her pain did not open her eyes necessarily to the pain of others. On the contrary, as Eve shares, "I also have a memory of a different kind. There was another girl in our class who was perhaps even more rejected than I. She also tried harder than I did for acceptance, providing the group with ample material for jokes. One day, during lunch, I was sitting outside watching a basketball game. One of the popular girls in class came up to me to show me something she said I wouldn't want to miss. We walked to a corner of the playground where a group of 3 or 4 sat. One of them read aloud from a small book, which I was told was the girl's diary. I sat down and laughed till my sides hurt, heard my voice finally blend with the others. Looking back, I wonder how I could have participated in mocking this girl when I knew perfectly well what it felt like to be mocked myself. I would like to say that if I were in that situation again today, I would react differently. But I can't honestly be sure. Often being accepted by others is more satisfying than being accepted by oneself." Eve knowingly participated in this cruel act of bullying, despite being a victim of bullying herself. She knowingly inflicted the very same kind of pain that she had endured, and she knowingly turned a blind eye to the suffering that she knew all too well. The glory of being included was far more powerful than all those other feelings combined. It's unsettling to witness how a person's desire for acceptance can cloud their judgment so completely. But it isn't surprising. Our yearning to belong is almost primal, and it often supersedes everything else. The truth is, it's hard to be the one who says, "No, this isn't okay." It's hard to be the one who stands up to the crowd. It's hard to be an upstander when you're surrounded by bystanders. Personally, I stand in awe of upstanders, of anyone strong enough to resist the tides of groupthink, peer pressure, and temptation. I stand in awe of anyone fearless enough to walk a righteous path when others around them have gone astray. And I stand in awe of anyone courageous enough to speak out when others remain silent. It's never easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is. That said, being an upstander and standing up to bully culture becomes less hard if we do it in community. It's less hard when the people with whom we live and work and study have a mutual understanding that bullying behavior is anathema to our values. It's less hard when a community decides together the kind of moral scaffolding they want to construct in their lives. And it's less hard when people decide together that the community they want to build is one founded on love, generosity, and mutual respect. Jewish camp is one of those places modeling this kind of proactive, values-based, kindness-first communities. The anti-bullying pledge is just one way this camp demonstrates explicitly and publicly the values they believe in and the communal standards that guide their mission. This pledge reflects a community founded upon righteousness, inclusivity, open-heartedness, and the notion that every single person is created B'Tselem Elohim in God's image. If only our society writ large could do the same. But starting small in one camp community is one path to dreaming big. In honor of this dream, a dream of a more perfect society, a dream undergirded by our Jewish texts like the one we read today, which says, "Do not wrong one another." I want to conclude by sharing the text of the anti-bullying pledge with you, adapted for today. If even one word or one phrase stays with you, it will have been worth it. It reads, "On this Shabbat morning at Temple Emanu-El, we collectively promise to treat others respectfully, to include those who are left out, to never bully or tease others, to not participate in gossip, to be upstanders, to never watch, laugh, or join in when someone is being bullied, to tell a trusted adult or friend or colleague when we suspect or witness bullying, to never participate in any form of cyberbullying, to help those who are being bullied by having the courage to be an ally." May these words inspire us all, adults and children alike, to build a better, gentler, more compassionate world, a world in which all people feel safe, accepted, and loved. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be so.